Hey friends, welcome to Tuesday. Glad you're here for another mic talk here at Song and Sword. Thank you guys for joining me. A kind of a sobering anniversary for us today. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But I'm over here in Bloomington, Indiana, not Bloomington, Illinois, writing. Some gracious people from our church have allowed us to use this place over here for me to write. I'm working on a book for this fall. Many of you guys know this, called Destinations. It's kind of Paul's journey into Greece from Acts 16 through 18. And yesterday I got a great jump on writing the chapter about listening for the calls and the cries of people around us. Speaking of which, the cries of the people that were affected by those murders that happened in Bloomington reach out to us, and prayerfully we'll respond as we are needed for that Song and Sword. I hope you guys are well. Text prayer to that number on the screen. I want to pray with you and for you every day. And pray with us today at 149. Pray especially for me this week that God would give me words that would be inspirational, that by the time we put them in a book this fall, we will all grow in learning how to find God's direction for our life. Today, I said a sobering date because 2 years ago today, I resigned from the church that I had worked at for 27 years. And I have to tell you, I said sobering anniversary because the reality is Sarah and I are still working through some of the emotional pain of all of that. And sometimes it hits you and you're just going, I can't believe, everything that's happened. And it's sad some days. We are not emotionally full that we would, just say, okay, we're 100% recovered from all that happened. And there's a lot of hurt from people that, still haven't talked to us, or people have believed truths and half-truths and lies, and people have spread those things. And it's just honestly, 2 years ago today, the most painful period in our lives in 40 years of ministry. But that doesn't mean that we have to take this route that Naomi took. And I want to circle back. This whole week we're reading through the book of Ruth. And if you're with us on this journey through the Old Testament, keep reading the book of Ruth. Since there's only 4 chapters, I would recommend that you start reading the Psalms, maybe 30 or 40 Psalms this week along with Ruth, which would be cool because Ruth was the grandma of David and David wrote a bunch of the Psalms. So that would tie together well. But I'd start hitting the Psalms because otherwise you're going to have 150 Psalms to read in the future weeks to come. But keep going. Even if you don't get through all the books, we're going to get through most of the books of the Bible, but many of you have. I want to go to Ruth and circle back from that sermon on Sunday to Ruth chapter 1, when Naomi and Ruth came back into Bethlehem. Verse 19, Ruth 1:19 says, the two of them traveled until they came to Bethlehem. And when they entered Bethlehem, the whole town was excited about their arrival. And the local women exclaimed, can this be Naomi? Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, she answered, for the Almighty has made me very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why do you call me Naomi? Since the Lord has opposed me and the Almighty has afflicted me. Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, for I'm bitter. The Lord Almighty has dealt bitterly with me. That's her take on life. That's her take on everything that's gone down. And to be honest, it's been pretty rough for Naomi. Her husband has died. Her 2 sons have died. She's coming home to a life that she doesn't know, where she's not going to own anything. She didn't have a future. And she's got this tag-along daughter-in-law named Ruth. And she's bitter. And one of the things that I hope that comes out of this whole situation of my personal life, and I'm so grateful that so many of you did not jump off our wagon. You kept, I don't know what that means this morning, but you kept following us, and you kept trusting us, and you kept praying for us, and you kept supporting us and encouraging us. And thankfully, those of you who are part of the Song and Sword ministry, you've held us up, and that's why we're here today. I promise you that. But what I've wanted to illustrate is that, guys, life can be very hard. Life can be bitter, but God calls us not to be bitter. And I hope that you're seeing in my heart and in Sarah's heart that we're not bitter, because God has been too good. I could not utter the words the Lord has dealt bitterly with me. The Lord Almighty has been gracious to me. And therefore, since sometimes life is bitter and things are hard, I'm not going to become bitter. The Bible tells us this: taste and see that the Lord is good. When I feel like I should become bitter, then I'm just going to keep tasting of the word of the Lord and tasting all the stuff that he's done for me by faith. Paul says in Ephesians that we should get rid of all bitterness. Hebrews talks about don't let a root of bitterness grow up in your heart. Guys, I know that life can be bitter. Life can be, as they say, a bitter pill to swallow. But I want you to know as your pastor that I'm not going to become bitter. Even though there's reasons to be and there's things that I could become bitter about, I'm going to try to seek the joy of the Lord today, because ultimately my testimony is different than Naomi. I do not believe that the Lord Almighty has dealt wrong with me. And I don't believe the Lord has opposed me or afflicted me, it says there. I believe the Lord is for me and for us and for you. And he has brought us into a great place. And there's no place on earth I'd rather be than doing what I'm doing right now, leading the flock at Song and Sword. And I'm grateful today. I want you to see that. I'm trying to lead by example, even though it's not easy. It's easy to become bitter. But if you have a little spiritual depth and some faith, you can move on from bitter, and you can seek the joy of the Lord, and you can taste and see that the Lord is good. And even though this is a 2-year anniversary that's a little weird for us today, we are thanking God that he's been faithful. That's the word about God. He's faithful. So no bitterness today. Happy Tuesday, kids. Pray for your pastor. I got it right. Love you all. Peace.